I really identified with the girls in Ghost World. They made me feel like I wasn't so alone.
Yeah, whatever. Do you know anyone who works at Batman? 'Cause I really want to draw Batman. I'm awesome at utility belts. Check these out. This is where the Batman keeps his money, in case he has to take the bus.
Freaky girls doing shows, doing tricks to make us holler. On a given
Ain't
night,
you done
all for the
dance?
dollar. Silicone breasts, all on the chest. Not like us, but above the rest. They'll do anything to turn us on. Them girls got it going on. I like a lot of booty that's bigger than 20. Girl, you know
Nobody does the robot anymore.
Bread, $2 extra.
$2, but everyone in front of me got free bread.
You want bread?
Yes, please.
$3! What? No soup for you.
At last, the greatest album of love songs ever recorded. You'll want to share them with someone special.
Why do birds suddenly appear?
Sung by the man who turned a personal affliction into a recording career, Don No Soul Simmons.
Just like me, they long to be close to you. Why do stars fall down from the sky every time you walk by? Just like me, they long to be close to you. She'd been sitting there and
So curl up by the fireside and listen to the non-threatening music of this master showman.
and honey, I miss you. And I'm being good, and I'd love to be with you. If only I could. Say, has anybody seen my sweet gypsy rose? Here's her picture when she was my sweet man.
Young lovers of any age will cherish this timeless collection of the world's most romantic ballads. And if you act now, you'll get free this bonus album, Don Simmons Down and Funky.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog, was a good friend of mine. Never understood a single word he said.
This two-record collection is not available in any stores, so order now.
Yes, he always had some mighty fine wine.
Matchbooks from our favorite place, this Chinatown, broken face. Pickle bottles filled with plants, this cuckoo clock we bought in France. The memories I'll never lose, 1,000 things I'll never use. I should throw them all away, but not today. In the bedroom, there's a touch of roses in the air, but when I turn to find her, she's never really there. It must have been the perfume, the one she used to wear.
Let's start shit.
Get through this bubble. He's never gonna let you down. He's always looking so fly. No other buck can compare, that's why Gizmo's the best dog in the world. Living better than Snoop Dogg. That motherfucker better watch out for Gizmo. He's got style and he's got grace. Gizmo's the part that can't be replaced. In the paper today,
tales of war in every ways, but you turn right over to the TV page.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Don't dream it's over.
Number 3 valve is shot. Take off the head and strip it down. I want all the valves replaced.
Jan Wilson, what kind of deodorant do you use?
I'm a woman, but I sweat like a man. That's why I need a deodorant that helps me from sliding out of my suit on those curves, and at the same time makes me smell like flowers or something feminine. I don't know, I get a lot of heat about that. That's why I use Pit Stop Extra Dry. Pit Stop was designed for women who do the job of men. Sometimes 2 men. Hey, get away from those tires. I'll do them myself. Pit Stop for that winning feeling.
And the sweet smell of success. Pit Stop.
What knockers?
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
In our national anthem, we've got bombs bursting in air, for God's sakes. We drive around with our shotguns on the outside of the pickups so the neighbors will see them. The first sound of democracy came from a gun like this one. And that's why the ban on assault weapons has been allowed to lapse. It's all about our basic civil rights. It's about democracy. It's about freedom. Denny Crane.
What?
Registered commies, not guns.
Oh, he was probably a member of the National Rifle Association. There was a group that helped criminals get guns so they could shoot citizens. It was a public service.
Let's get back
right.
to
So these punks,
Yes.
I don't know if they wanted money or they wanted something more sexual.
Wow.
But it's a lucky thing I had my pieces.
Your pieces.
My guns.
Oh.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
Wow.
Bang! Well, I don't see so good, so I missed. Then they ran away. I ran after them.
Okay.
Bang! Try to shoot them in the back. But I don't run so good either. Anyway, you guys all think I'm a hero, and I'll accept that responsibility.
Yeah, I asked Denny, how do you feel about gun control?
For communists.
What about banning assault weapons in the private sector?
As soon as you say it's okay to ban assault weapons, my friend, even in the private sector, you make it easier to take guns away from hunting than personal protection. Soon, the military and the police are without firearms.
Mrs. Montgomery, we got your test back, and...
What is it, Doctor?
Girls?
You'll never walk again.
Well, thank you for telling me. Darling.
For shame, Doc. Hunting rabbits with an elephant gun.
Elephant gun?
That's right, Doc. So why don't you go shoot yourself an elephant? You do, and I'll give you such a pinch!
We're going to start our volleys. We hope you like the show. Now everything is ready. We're raring to go. We'll give you all the latest songs and dances full of pep. We're gonna start with high jump. Just watch this chorus steps.
Originally settled as Ocean View during the 1850s, the city's population boomed with displaced
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Fantastic Comics Presents, our 176th consecutive Tuesday where we get together live at 8 o'clock on the West Coast, sometimes with, sometimes sans guest. Oh, but tonight we have a guest, so he can help me out with the whole John Romita thing that we got sprung on us last episode. I am checking my microphone right now. Looks like everything's okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. For those of you that are new here, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I don't know, hit the thumbs up. We're going to be talking about comic books from a comic book store owner's, a comic book fan, and, a store's point of view. But tonight, it's also going to be like it is in the comic store when you talk about things that are going on. We're going to have a guest, Eric Breen, if you aren't familiar with him, and all the other places that he slums. This is the slummiest of them all. Thank you to Eric back there. At first, so those of you that, again, that don't know, we just talk about things that happen in the comic store. And sometimes I have people on the show and sometimes I don't. There you go. That's it. Did you notice all the gun stuff that was going on over the weekend? Actually, that's really no different than any other time of the year. But when it is super heated, I like to put all 4 of those clips together and sometimes other ones. You add on all the Looney Tunes stuff and what other stuff I have. Yeah, it's about all I have to say about that. You probably all know my stance about that. But can't we be a little nicer to each other? One of the things we talked about in the store is wrestling. And oh damn, I had a whole piece of paper out there in the living room that had some writing about wrestling that I wanted to talk about, but who knows, maybe I can wing it. It was also actually for the guest, and that's kind of a bummer that I don't have that, but hopefully I can make that happen. I'm just looking for, damn, did I not put it up here? Oh no, I did. Jeez Louise. Anyway, for those of you who am I?
My name is Yule Carter, comic book retailer in Berkeley, California.
That's right. I'm sorry. I'm doing everything last minute. I put things in the different places. This is me, Yule Carter. We're going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to welcome our guest, and then we're going to talk about one of those things we talk about in the comic store that, we can only lend a minute to. But first.
Hey, let's do that 2,000-pound man thing. I'll be that Carl Reiner guy, and you be what's-his-face.
Ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman here is one of the phenomena of the world. He looks no older than Mr. Sean, and yet he is 2,000 years old. That true, sir?
Yes, you want to see my driver's license?
No, we have it authenticated. The Mayo Clinic has checked you out and said that you are 2,000.
Hey, Eric, how's it going?
I was just thinking that the opening theme is kind of like an alarm clock. When it ends, you just want to go 5 more minutes, Mom.
Sometimes. How's that game going? Because I saw that we were losing.
It's 1-0.
1-0.
In my other comment, I said it looks like most of the nation put in all 4 clips this weekend. See what I did there?
Mm-hmm. I did.
No, they challenged and they were called out. He looked out, so it's still 0-0.
Really? Mm-hmm. Woo! Let's go blue. All right, that's enough baseball for me. You can keep me don't even tell me. Let me see if you can, if something really good happens, well, were you talking about pitchers getting hit on the head? Maybe that was somebody else.
Maybe not with you, but I have noticed that's happening a lot.
Oh, I think it was you last night when it was on an England team show.
Oh yeah, we did a quick auction.
Yeah, and you
I
guys
forgot.
talked a little bit about baseball, and I was like, man, my team sucks. I can't even. And I forget, is it Lane or LK that's the Giant fan?
LK.
Either way, I don't want to get involved in that right now. But what I do want to get
Don't bring it
involved is,
up.
but cuz the wrestling minute. Yeah. Woo! Breen, I'm going to bring up a couple things. I'm going to show some pictures and a couple of really quick clips, and we're going to try and keep this under a minute. But if you have anything to add about anything that I talk about, please go ahead. First up, on Saturday, AEW debuted their Collision program with CM Punk, who's back. It was in Toronto, and there was a 6-man tag at the end, and oh my gosh, CM Punk and boys won. But the most important thing that happened at Collision was this picture was taken. Yeah. This Sunday. This is in Toronto. Forbidden Door. The other one was in Chicago. This is in Toronto. Forbidden Door. AEW's finest versus NJPW's finest. And only the select few know who almost any of these people are, except for that guy that reminds me of the guy in The Shield. And maybe, Jericho. Wow, what's he been doing? I'm joking, of course. But you know what? I did see a clip of somebody that might possibly become the next AEW star, and I'd like to show that to you right now.
Oh! What is she doing? Symbio DDT to Bodie by a person half his age.
I thought that was Matt Hardy's son.
No. That's a little. That's a daughter of, I can't remember who. Somebody that's been in AEW before. But I like to make fun of them by saying any of these children will be wrestling for them anytime. I mean, even when they're children, possibly, because it can happen. -1. Anyway, what did you think about Sky Blue's cake, as the kids say these days?
What can be said that hasn't already been said?
What can you say that hasn't been said? Cheers.
Yes, salute.
All right. And then on WWE, I heard you again. I think it was on Anglintine's show on Saturday, where you said you would like to see the last 15 minutes of SmackDown not have an Uso on every once in a while.
The last 15 minutes of any WWE programming.
Wow. Okay, so I haven't really been watching Super Strong lately, but I do see and hear about what happened. It seems that there was this big ultimatum about Jay with Jimmy, and whether or not Jimmy, who's out of the bloodline, whether or not Jay's, what he thinks about that. And then there's this whole back and forth, and Jay didn't believe in Jay and all that stuff. And there was this moment where Jay says, "You're out."
And I'm out too.
Oh my God!
That's going to get the copyright claim. That had to be too long. I just know it. Sometimes they just anyway, it was pretty quick. Come on, WWE. That wasn't even 5 seconds. It was 5 seconds. 5 seconds. That was a pretty awesome scene, though, that sequence, especially when it's clipped and then I see it on Raw. I mean, that was pretty cool that way.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is, I think at this point, they are two totally different types of product. I think the crossover between the two is going to get smaller and smaller. I think they're going after two different audiences because, that's when Levesque was in charge, it was getting, it was kind of getting closer, but McMahon has a different vision. His vision is 10 or 12 people because you can't remember any more than that. Give them to you over and over and over again. Repetition. You know who's going to be on the end of a WWE show. AEW can be any number of people, and that's what I like about it. The WWE has its moments.
No, I hear
I
you.
actually like the Usos, but like I said it's very predictable at this point.
Mm-hmm. They do that. They're very cut and paste, paint by numbers, all that stuff. Connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that that's, until proven otherwise, the tried and true method. If you don't do that, then you can only aspire to so high a level. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing.
It's kind of like how we see in crowdfunding a lot of times. You know, it's like, well, I made a shit ton of money, but I got to spend a shit ton of money to send this crap out now, you know? And
no, that's
like
true.
that.
But if it's sort of like when Fox Sports 1 tried to imitate the ESPN formula of the back and forth talk show with the when Bayless went over to there and he was Shannon Sharp, they couldn't really eat into ESPN's dominance in that field, because why would you watch 2.0 or ESPN Lite if you can just watch ESPN? If you try to replicate what WWE does better than anybody, you're going to lose. This is the alternative to that. To me, it's sort of like they may not get as large an audience, but I think they probably get. It's sort of like, that like a show on AMC or FX, like The Americans, was never going to get the ratings of an NCIS, but that's okay, because the audience they did have was loyal, supportive, however you want to look at it.
I don't know. I've had too many good things that I've liked just suffer because it didn't get Nielsen ratings or whatnot, I mean, where's Manimal? Come on.
Well, that's the difference between commercial networks and everything else.
I can't believe there's not a 10-episode series on Netflix or Hulu or whatever of that. I mean, dude turns into animals. You don't fear animals enough. I think we've, and I don't know if the wrestling fan is, or maybe ever has been, intelligent enough to do it the way AEW does it. And I'm not quite sure if the people in charge are intelligent enough over at AEW to make this work. Like, they were like, everybody offers, like, this is going to be wrestling. This is going to be this. It's the same fucking shenanigans with them, just in a different way. It's just a different, suit of paint. And I mean, paint.
That's I've noticed that. A couple of things. I think they are smart enough, but Tony Khan is a fanboy at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's susceptible as anyone else when he sees what WWE, like I said, when Vince McMahon says there's too much wrestling on my program, and but I know what he meant by that, because for what he's trying to do, that's the least important thing. I'm sure you're not allowed to say the word wrestling anymore again.
No, they can still. I
think they can do that. Okay,
I don't know. I mean, those lists come out when they come out, but it's shocking that they could never say that they couldn't say strap or whatever the hell it is, that they couldn't do.
Yeah. I don't know if he's a horrible booker, but he is definitely susceptible to, like I said, fanboying out, and they do stupid things. Like I said, I know people like it, but Danhausen, what the hell?
Dude, I've not been a Danhausen guy.
Yeah,
ever.
It's like Danhausen would be a better fit in WWE, and I'm not knocking WWE, but I'm saying, like, in that company, Kane can come out and go like that, and everything blows up.
Sure,
we all know it's the show. So Danhausen, when he's doing that and putting curses on people, that's billing themselves as the alternative to that stuff, and then you do that stuff.
You say the thing about Kane, and you say, I'm going to include the Undertaker, the Boogeyman, and all sorts of guys. Okay, but when I'm specifically talking about the Undertaker, and for the most part Kane, there is a reverence from people backstage of wrestling all the way to fandom, and I'm telling you, I've never liked their matches. There's been a few Undertaker. I mean, he pulls it out every once in a while. And not only that, when he was mean Mark Callis, ain't nobody gave a shit about him, really. I mean, he was big, too, in, like, you know, WCW and stuff.
No, I had a Skyscrapers t-shirt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, you know, but still. I mean, I like them. They were big. And
who was the other one?
But Spivey.
Damn.
Okay. I can't remember who the one was before Mark Callis, though. It was Spivey and some other dude. Yeah. There was this match. I remember Jill and I were watching, like, when WWE Network was on, and we were watching WCW and older stuff like that. There was this match with the Skyscrapers, and Spivey kind of soft. I mean, Mark Callis wasn't as soft, but Spivey kind of pissed off one of the Steiners. I can't remember which one, because they could both fly off the handle. No big deal. And motherfucker came and boom. Oh, it looked so good. He hated that, you know?
Yeah. Lane, I think Sid replaced Spivey.
Oh, that might be right.
But there might have been somebody before Callis, because maybe it was like the Midnight Express. There were about 5 or 6 guys in that, all told.
Yeah, I could be misremembering. Anyhow, that everybody. Do you like talk like that about wrestling? I mean, seriously, that's been the Wrestling Minute.
Is that Sandman?
No, that was Pat McAfee. He got stunned by Stone Cold, and he had a beer in his hand when it happened. And then when they were pulling away, McAfee was drinking that beer, and that's only like a second. So I have not gotten struck for that one yet. Oh, 2 seconds.
Lane's saying it was that Spivey replaced Sid.
Damn, very good. Boom. Good. I'm going to the chat right now. This is the part where I say hey to everybody out there. I don't hear anything. Did you hear anything on that? No. How about this one?
Hello. 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 Oh. Go. Look out. Hello.
Hello. I don't know what happened to that other one. Uh-oh. Lane Kramer was here first. Wow. Hey, I hope you can stay awake for all of this. If not, catch us in the reruns. None of that should have gotten us in too much trouble. This should be lots of fun. I agree. This is already lots of fun. How do you feel about this, Eric?
I'm having a ball.
You are a busy man. You get out there. And when I mean out there, I mean like right where you are right now.
I was going to say, and out there. I mean,
Shelby Pill's in the other room. Hello. Illithidor is here to say, hey, everyone. Post a lot. Are you going to be around tomorrow? Joe's here. Let's see. That's President Zelensky. I'll have you know. Some of those. Well, there's some new ones that I had there, and I didn't play everything also. Oh, damn. Okay, this is good. Road Comics says, remembering Romita. I thought this was going to be a Mark Bagley retrospective. Have you experienced Mark Bagley in New Mutants, Amazing Spider-Man, DC's crappy Trinity, I think it was?
I liked him on Ultimate Spider-Man. I thought he was a good fit for that.
Yeah.
I don't dislike him, but he's not my go-to guy by any stretch.
I mean, he's so far. He's lower than Greg LaRocque for me. And the only reason I might consider Mark Bagley above Greg LaRocque is because Greg did Marvel Team Up. And if we're only talking amazing, then there's only so many people, you know. But I mean, Luke Ross, Mark Bagley. Some people have said, like, I think Luke Ross died. I'm not sure. But I saw somebody on Twitter say, man, that guy is a legend. I'm like, legend. We're going to get into it as far as Romita's importance to Marvel, mostly. I mean, what do you think? Going in, just like talking about Romita for a second, is his legacy more at Marvel than DC and other companies? I mean, what other companies did he really work for? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know how. I'm sure he did something somewhere else, but yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Marvel by a long shot.
So it's interesting. It's interesting. So some of my research is, I mean, none of it was on the internet except for pictures. Was the American Comic Book Chronicles, the 1950s. And this is by Tomorrow's Press, Roy Thomas. With John Romita dying, a lot of people are like, who's left from like the Silver Age and maybe before? And there's Roy Thomas, right?
Yeah.
And then there's, I guess people were saying Larry Lieber.
Oh, yeah. And I think Don Perlin is still alive also.
Oh, really? That's cool. Don
so.
Perlin. These guys live. It's so amazing because like Kane and Kirby, man, they died a long time ago.
Yeah.
Compared to like a lot of like Steranko's still around, but he's kind of like the latter parts, right? He's not old. He's not 1950s like John Romita.
No, mid to late 60s when he knocked on Stan's door.
All right, so let the doors off. This isn't going to be a 2-hour review of CM Punk's return on Collision, only if I want people to pay attention, and probably like a couple days ago also.
Sorry, I missed that.
I did wonder seeing that announcement of the Iron Man wedding, and how well do you try to sell a crossover like that in your store? Eric, do you know what Lane's talking about as far as Iron Man?
Yes.
Okay, so Iron Man's going to get married to Emma Frost. And let me tell you, with their verbal conversations over the last probably like 10 years, and them being like Randy all the time anyway. I mean, I think she's a perfect lady for a guy that can't be an alcoholic anymore. He's going to really be devoted, I think, for sure. Jerry Duggan's writing both X-Men and Iron Man. I don't hate those books. In fact, that's the only X-Men book I read on the regular. And I also, for a guy that doesn't really like Iron Man, his is really easy to digest. And since it has a connectivity, since it has that, I think it's pretty good. It's not a bad idea. And who knows, they could just be like the it couple and then they can get divorced. And it's like, so what?
Well, they'll need something for next year's Hellfire Gala that in a sliding time scale means every 6 weeks.
Oh, I don't know about that's you got a very good point. Can you explain that for people that don't know exactly what you're talking about? Because a lot of people might only have been reading X-Men since the Hickman run. Maybe they're Image people and they're like, oh, I'll dabble in this thing in the cartoon that I know, but what are you talking about?
No, so what about sliding time scale?
Yeah,
well, okay. If Marvel's been around for 60 plus years, but the characters have only aged about 10, give or take, that means that every year in the comics is maybe 5 or 6 weeks in Marvel time. So they have these Hellfire Galas every year now, which means they're basically having one every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I know you just kind of you run with it, just like holiday issues. Technically, all these characters have had about 60 Christmases, but
but we're forgiving on those a whole lot more. And not only that, I mean, anytime somebody's in a group book and also has a solo book, it's like, what the hell's going on here? You know? Well, why aren't the Avengers involved in this Thor storyline? And how is he involved in the Avengers storyline? He's on Asgard and all this other stuff. You know,
they used to.
I think that's why retcons aren't as bad as people think. Like, it's understandable that something might need to change with the Fantastic Four, but you're just not. Although NASA's different than it was, over the last 30 years, 40 years. I'm assuming that it's still pretty, people don't want you going over there and taking rocket ships and going to the moon or whatever, I mean, I know that, any billionaire can send a satellite into orbit and freaking have a fucking radio station or whatever, television station, streaming service, whatever. All right. Winnie is here to say, yo, Yule, I got my new comics this week. A whole lot of Grayson, Nightwing 105, Titans 2, and World's Finest 16. Supes 5 and Wonder Woman 800. Instead, nice what's that guy? Daniel Sampier. Foil, bought $1 back issues. Awesome. That's not my customer, unfortunately, unless it's by internet, and that has happened at times. So, for anybody that's interested, I have a store in Berkeley, California. That's what this show's all about, my store. Let's go back to comments. Dodgers are diarrhea. Is that true right now? Are they diarrhea right now?
Right now, or is it in general, or?
I don't like baseball is a strange sport. They were the best record, and right now they're a above 500 team. There's a lot of teams that wish they could be in that situation, and you hope with Urias coming back. Is Kershaw still pitching good right now? Yes.
Yeah, well, he's the entire staff right now.
Gonsolin, Bobby Miller got rocked against the Giants, but up until then, he only had a .48 ERA, and he still dominated the Giants for the first 4 innings. And so did Gonsolin. But the fucking Giants are pesky with power too. It's stupid.
See, people forget remember Walker Buehler? Remember him?
Well, he's threatening to come back by the end of the season.
Yeah.
But you're crazy. Just sit it out for the rest of the year.
Well, my point being, I don't care how much money you have and how much money you spend. If you've spent that money and put those people in place, because I hate the word pieces. Put the people in place, and then a bunch of them get hurt. You're screwed.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? One guy went down for the Yankees, and look how fucked they are.
Okay. Yordan Alvarez. Have you checked Houston's record lately?
Yeah.
Now they're missing a couple starters too, but they were a world champion last year. You take 3 or 4 people off of that team that should be there right now, and you get swept at home to Cincinnati.
You're hoping, and I'm saying this for any team, you're hoping that your rookies get through the slumps to get to the part where they were good beforehand. You know what I mean? If they were doing good. Or you're hoping your rookies at least play superlative defense in this new baseball world. There's other ways to factor in, but it's tough. I mean, how do you deal with adversity? And when you're young, I mean, the Cincinnati Reds are riding high right now, but they're all children, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't know enough to be intimidated by what's going on.
Exactly. Oh, you're a fast team. Hope nothing happens to an ankle or a hamstring, but that you're running all the time.
Well, it would have to happen to several because there are a lot of guys on that team that can fly.
That's right. But it's just stuff like that. And I'm not really slamming the Cincinnati Reds. I'm just saying, Pittsburgh was really hot at the beginning of the season. Dodgers really hot at the beginning of the season.
You knew that Pittsburgh's couldn't last, and they fell apart just, organically. Now the Reds are the example of what happens when you bring up a bunch of people and all of them click. When you bring up a starter who has 3 starts and doesn't give up a run, That when does that happen? Oh, that's the first since like 1893.
Yeah.
So I mean, I said, and then the position players have all exceeded expectations. And it's like that never happens. Certainly not here.
Gamma World says AEW would be great if they actually sold and didn't just wrestle like a video game, pulling off every finishing move possible. Yeah, finisher possible. I kind of agree. The Canadian Destroyer on the concrete didn't get a pinfall or whatever it needed to have happen. I'm like that. The DDT. I mean, when I grew up, the DDT was a finishing move. I bet Breen, you body slams were finishing moves when you were a kid. 5 years makes that big a difference.
On concrete.
People said, I know exactly. Oh my goodness. People said when I was a kid, the old timers were like, "Oh, that splash from Snuka. Oh, disgraceful." Jilby Pill says Lucha Underground was an alternative. Did you ever watch that?
Was that the one that was on? Oh God, the network that had the From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes, Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah. Well, it was a soap opera.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally had last week, and then they'd have guys going into people's hospital rooms and trying to kill them, and they're wrestlers, and John Morrison was the they had some crazy shit happen on that show.
And I mean, the thing is like a lot of people are like, oh, wrestling women against men, it's just to put on show. But the thing is like not. A movie can do a lot of things to make the impact look a whole lot more real. But when you're actually naked in front of everybody in a ring and you're trying to do something, when it just doesn't look good. I mean, Rhea Ripley is a large woman. She could, she'll probably have to fight Dom someday. So that will look good. But, anybody larger, like Brock Lesnar and her, I mean, I don't believe almost anybody with Brock Lesnar, but if I hadn't seen real fighting, I wouldn't believe it ever.
I will say Rhea Ripley is the best thing that's happened to WWE in a while. She's phenomenal.
Gamma Worlds, and I'm not skipping people just for any reason. Tony Khan is a horrible booker. He needs to stop doing it. He needs to give the book to someone else. He needs to. What the AEW needs is a Bible, and they need to freaking stick to it. And I really look, you can have 24 and 36 and 48 wrestlers, but I think a certain amount of what, like you said, Vince likes 12 wrestlers. You're crazy. Vince is 2 wrestlers at best, and maybe a tag team that they're going to split up. AEW is like 12. I mean, what's up with Wardlow? Give me a break. This is like ridiculous. You should have stuck with Wardlow ever since the beginning. And they could have done that with Cage. They could have done that with Miro. And they could have done that with Lance Armstrong, even though I'll never buy him as a champ.
Archer? You mean Lance Archer?
Lance Armstrong. And Lance Archer, exactly.
Yeah, now, I would say the problem, again, is WWE, even though he's sold it, is Vince's toy. AEW is Tony Khan's toy. Here's a guy that has the money to live out his dream. Unfortunately, at some point that might start hurting business, and I hope someone can convince him of that before it gets out of control, any more out of control. Because I said I'm not saying they're ever going to be as big, but there's definitely room for both. The Monday Night Wars proved that for about 2 years before, the old boys came in and destroyed that. But there's room for both, and it's just Tony Khan needs to loosen the reins of his own power a little bit.
Yeah. If anybody has a favorite Romita thing and you want to let us know, put it in chat. Of course, there's comments that you can put in after the fact. Maybe telling me I'm full of S about something, except for the Tony Khan AEW stuff. Talking Souls here. I also saw Dwayne Muth. Oh, yeah, there you go. Hello, Yule and Eric. I'm going to get through these. Talking Souls here. Eli says, R.I.P. Romita. I'm just now hearing this. Oh, no way, really? Oh, yeah, you know what? Shooter's a 1960s guy, right? He was writing comics when he was 13.
Yeah.
Bam! He's not young either, though. And then, man.
Nice. I think he's finally crept into his 70s.
Yeah, it's funny, like, Steranko's obviously older than Jim Shooter. Well, I assume he's older.
He's well into his 80s.
Yeah, but we don't consider him from the same time period, even though they were both alive at the same time. You gotta put the work in. Alyssa Wong. I don't know. I saw a video about her earlier. Talking Soul says the original superheroes are hella old. Peter is 60. Creepy dude in a suit. LOL. I don't know about creepy. If you read like Earth X, he was kind of cool. He pulled out of retirement.
Or if you look at a Spider-Man life story, that handled that fairly well.
How's your father? Says I love it when you guys talk football. Do you have a football team?
Do I?
Would it be Cincinnati?
I'll put it this way. Mike Brown beat the fan out of me through decades of just not giving a shit. But I outlasted him. He's still alive, but he turned it over to his family. And within 2 years, they were in the Super Bowl. And then one game away from it the next year.
Boom.
So it's a good time to be a Cincinnati fan. Apparently, they play kickball. I mean soccer. And apparently 2 years ago, they were the worst team ever assembled. Now they're like the best team in that league. Yeah. I still don't care because one of the last place team in one of the divisions is 5 wins, no losses, but so many ties they're in last place. You explain to me how that makes any sense. And
they added teams. That's all I could say. Just like every sport. Eli says Shooter was about 20 years younger than Romita. Yeah,
more than that.
Romita was like 91, right?
93.
Born in 1950. 30.
Math is hard.
I wasn't trying to do math. I was saying stupid. My book is the 1950s. That's why.
By the way, it's cool that you have that book because I have most of those, and those are my favorite reference books that have ever been done.
So also I have Marvel in the 60s, and it's basically just issue to issue.
I've got that also.
Yeah, they do a little write-up of John Romita in there, and it tells you key issues, and we'll get to those in just a second. Let's see. Shooter cracked the whip when he was editor-in-chief. People love idolizing or maybe elevating Shooter's importance. What do you think about him and his importance at Marvel and maybe in comics altogether, but especially when he's editor?
I think he was the perfect editor for comic book fans, possibly the creator's worst nightmare, because he made them hit their deadlines. In his mind, nobody was bigger than the comics, and he was a fans first guy. And they groused and griped and went to DC. And one of the things about Shooters, he was the best thing that happened to Marvel and DC, because half his talent went over to DC and propped them up. Mm-hmm. If Shooter and John Byrne got along, we probably don't get the Man of Steel. So, and when you look at all the great runs that Marvel had in the 80s while he was there, Miller's Daredevil, Claremont Burns' X-Men, Burns' Fantastic Four, O'Neill's Iron Man, Simonson's Thor. It was an embarrassment of riches for fans in those days. Mm-hmm. And then thanks to him, we got Wolfman and Perez over on Teen Titans. We got the Legion. I mean, I said it was. Yeah.
He didn't. Then nobody at Marvel was happy about that, I think.
No, but
in fact, that also prevented Justice League Avengers from happening. The new universe happened.
Yeah, that was
Marvel events happened. I mean, a lot of people look at Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen for a major shift in the way people tell stories. But the way events are another part of the 80s that, Sins of Our Father type thing.
Well, we did have Secret Wars and then then over DC we got the Crisis. And I'll tell you what, events were good in the 80s too, though.
I don't disagree. I mean, of course, we wax nostalgic often for our, but I mean, it wasn't actually your child. In the 80s, I was going to be a teenager eventually. You were already probably, you were in your late teens probably by that time.
I was in my 20s.
20s?
In the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I like that because that's awesome. You got to read the tail end of the Silver Age, right? No, you were 75. So
I would have if I started when I was a little kid, but I didn't.
Yeah, that's right. I remember. But you started like 75, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you at least the middle of the Bronze Age. So you're gearing up to really like the 80s. I mean, John Byrne and all that stuff is so great. But let's talk about John Romita for a second.
Say something real. How's your father? I think you may be surprised.
Please discuss Romita's this one.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are big fans. The funny thing about comics is that I am not a fan of romance comics, but I think you are, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times you get together with your graphic man channel. You're graphic men, right? All of y'all. Fossils, yes.
4-color fossils.
And they get together and they show comic books. I have some comic books here to show. Maybe we'll get around to it. All coincidentally, John Romita. So his romance comics. Let's start it off with that. That's what he's known for, at least before he got to more. Well, all right. So in the 40s, he was working in romance comics. Wait, is that right? Is that what I read right?
If the 40s have been very late 40s.
Late 40s. So early 50s.
Now, I did find out that Joe sent me something yesterday where he did a Captain America story in issue 78. When I think the book was called Captain America Commie Smasher.
Wait, what was that? What number was
John
it?
Romita, it's like 77 or 78.
All right, so the information that I found in this book was all about young men. Have you ever got a chance to read Young Men?
I know of it. I don't think I have.
Okay. So in Young Men 24, that this is comic right here. In Young Men 24, they had a Human Torch story, a Submariner story, and a Captain America story. And this was like a revival. So this was like 55. Before he was working in comics, but this was like his big break. And I think this was like 55 it was. I mean, I could look, but it really doesn't matter. This is why you should turn a camera off when you're doing this. But here's John Romita's early work, working on Captain America. And there's a Red Skull story. It's kind of like a retelling of the origin of Captain America, and giving you a real quick story. John Romita says something about like he wanting to do something like Kirby did, but failing miserably. So forgive him for this, is what I'm saying. But you can see this is a stark difference from the John Romita that we're going to eventually see in the romance and Spider-Man comics.
That definitely has if the 50s had a house style, he was trying to emulate it.
Yeah. I like this though, maybe that Captain America cover, everybody says he doesn't punch the Red Skull. Here he throws a fucking shield in his face. So there is that, but pretty much it was a flop. And there's a lot of conversation about Romita thinking, like in his early days, that comics were kind of like on their way out anyway, and politics were involved, and it was kind of like looking to like cancel it. And it's funny that he would think that the comics were on their way out, and even though this did horribly, we hear this a lot about comic books from comic book creators. Even it's not just people on the internet. I mean, all the way back then, all the way till today, people that make comic books tell us that comics are dying. That's kind of something I came up with on that one.
Well, they definitely took a hit after the trial. I mean,
sure.
I mean, and I know a couple years later, like Atlas just basically all but folded, and Stan had to let everybody go.
Yeah.
And I'm sure. Yeah, I don't think I don't think Romita was on staff then, but I mean, I guess a freelance he would have gotten. And I think that's how he landed at DC.
So when he's over at DC, so he kind of was like, went to another company. We go do this over here, and then that's where, and I might throw some Marvel ones up here, but this is where he starts coming on and doing like the romance comics.
Yeah, I did find some, by the way.
Oh, you have some of your
Yes,
own? Oh, do this. Let me do this graphic man style. Look at the comments or in the description down below, and it's the channel for that, and everybody should check it out. Oh, not that way. We want to do it this way. Yeah.
I mean, that was a handsome man there before, but I've got the book.
Young Romance.
So apparently he did a lot of work for Young Love, Young Romance, and Girls Love. The rest of these are Girls Love.
Nice. Have you read these issues, or are you just collecting them for covers?
Oh, no, I read these. These are awesome reads.
Did you get them recently, like in the last 10 years, or have you got them since they came out?
No, I picked these up a couple years ago.
This is the reason. This is the great customer right here. Excuse me, Eric Breen.
When you look at these, you can see how. I mean, look, there's early Gwen and MJ. there's old man Peter.
So, I never thought of it this way, but as I was reading this book, one of the things was Gwen and MJ were a Mary Jane or Ginger kind of situation there.
So
Betty or Veronica, but I never really thought of it that way.
Peter was Archie. Harry was Jughead. Flash was Reggie.
Damn you!
Betty and Veronica,
ruining Spider-Man for me.
And that's what Romita changed, and we'll talk about that later when you ask my opinion on his overall impact. And this is peak Romita romance.
Oh, that's nice. They're walking away from us. That's strange.
Complete with date stamp.
Yeah, that's not right on the shoulder. Assholes.
At least
you can see it.
Yeah, this isn't a romance comic. The other one that I came across today at the warehouse. That is just such a cool cover, because that was
nice.
Long after he was a regular artist, long after he was the art director.
Dude, that looks like it's right out of the Marvel the Superheroes game. Marvel Heroes.
Yeah. I love that cover.
Nice. The Nom.
Yeah, now that's all I was able to find, but I will throw in before in case I forget. When Marvel started their romance line back up in the late 60s, Romita did some of the stories, as did John Buscema, Jim Steranko. And Romita did the cover of the first issues of both of them.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So did you know that? So when he was working at DC, he basically came over to Marvel because DC was like, we've got all this filed, stories that are just waiting to be put in comic books. Like, we've been buying these stories for years and we're not using them. And they're like, well, let's start using them and canning people. And that's how Romita basically was like out. and then he went over to Marvel.
Well, that's how people were getting. That's how people got knocked out of Marvel several years.
That's right.
But what also I think annoyed Romita was here he is, a phenomenal artist, but the problem was in those days at DC, the war comics, the romance comics, the science fiction, horror didn't exist at the time. Basically, everything but the superhero books had better stories and better art. But everybody wanted to do superheroes. Well, at least Romita did. But he couldn't break through. He couldn't get out of the. He couldn't break through from the romance comics at DC. So when he goes to work for Marvel, I think Stan kind of had an idea of what was coming. So he puts Romita on Daredevil and immediately writes a 2-part Spider-Man story. Gauge how Romita would do, at least drawing Spider-Man, because I don't think Peter Parker factored in that story at all. But and then, lo and behold, Ditko quits a couple of months later, in between issues 38 and 39, and that's how Romita got that gig.
That cover looked like Aquaman and Lois Lane. LOL. Let's see. Talking Soul says, got that run, Nom. Those have some early Art Adams. Really? I didn't know that. I don't read war comics.
I never read Nam, but I like my war comics old. The old DC ones, I've really developed an affinity for those.
I tried. I mean, especially with like Vietnam stuff, it was really hot in the 80s. And I mean, geez, even the Nom in the early days had my favorite artist, pretty much one of my favorite artists in Michael Golden. But although I really respect that book, Doug Murray, I guess, was like a vet from that time. And, so these are real stories, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Real stories.
Yeah, Gamma Worlds is bringing up one. Blitzkrieg. Remember that?
Oh, okay, so Blitzkrieg is a DC comic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes I get confused between some war comics from, what is it called? It was the Atlas comics that weren't Marvel. Not Marvel Atlas, which is really called C something. S-E-A.
Atlas Seaboard.
That's the one. That's what I mean.
All 4 months of them.
Yeah, all 4 months. And they have some, that's that company.
Blazing Battle Tales, I think, was their war book.
There you go. Yeah. They had shit like that.
But Blitzkrieg was 5 issues told through the Nazis' perspective.
Woo, baby. Really?
Yes.
All right, so there's remember the movie Stalingrad by any chance?
Heard of it. I mean,
it's all about Nazi. Well, I mean, a group of German Nazis, and they're like holed up, and the Russians are gonna come and fucking rout them. So it's like their last hours, basically, and it's like, oh my god, this is like crazy, if I'm remembering it right. I hate that shit. I don't like fucking war movies. That's just me, though. I was never a big cop and robber kind of guy. When the kids on bikes wanted to do cowboy and Indians, I was like, I'm more superheroes, because you can have like, I don't know. It's just what I grew up on. What can I say?
The one that I've really developed and I really, really like now that I didn't really read much of before was Enemy Ace.
Enemy Ace. Okay.
World War I, German pilot, but very respectful of his enemies and very introspective. And they were done. Personally, I think DC's war books were better than Sergeant Fury.
Mm-hmm.
But they were 2 different types of comics, so that's
WWE to AEW, definitely.
But
Marvel's more WWE.
Yeah, well, DC was better at everything but superheroes, but Marvel was so much better at superheroes than DC. Eventually, it took about 10 years, but eventually, when they ended up passing them in market share, they never looked back.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I mean, they never could get together and be like friends and like American League and National League. You know what I mean? They could never do it because there was always one-upsmanship and stuff like that. The only kind of war comics I really dug, if you could call them that, was maybe like G.I. Joe. Anything that had like a character, you know what I mean? So like maybe I could read Sergeant Fury more than Sergeant Rock, you know what I mean? Even though they have characteristics, they're just too real. They weren't over the top like the Marvel ones.
No, I totally get that, actually.
You know, so it's like, but more, even still, as they were coming out, only thing really coming out anymore was like G.I. Joe at best. And then like some offshoot companies, like I said, would do maybe like a Vietnam book. But those were like Don Lomax or something like that, if I remember correctly. Did you hear by any chance, and I'm just going to do this for comic book sake, Robert Kirkman's big announcement by any chance about the Energon universe?
Yes, I did. But if you would be so kind as to talk about that for a minute, I will be right back.
All right, that's awesome. Want to make me solo. So Void Rivals came in and sold out, but before it had come out last week, it pretty much was already spoiled that Robert Kirkman had got the licenses of G.I. Joe and Hasbro. I mean, G.I. Joe and Transformers from Hasbro, which, at least as I was been led to believe, you know, when you have to get a license from Hasbro, you have to buy all of that. And they don't have to get My Little Pony, and they don't need to get, you know, other stuff like that. That they don't, you know, so it's just G.I. Joe and Transformers. It's going to be a shared universe. And the real big reveal was Transformers was going to be written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson. And I'm showing you, oh, it's at the very top. Also, Duke is going to be written by Joshua Williamson with art by Tom Riley. He did one of those Thing miniseries that I dug. And Cobra Commander is going to be written by Joshua Williamson with art by somebody I don't know. But also G.I. Joe is going to be back on issue 301. And Larry Hama, who's been writing the series forever, is going to still be doing it. And I'm sure they're going to have a real good artist. So Robert Kirkman putting his best foot forward as a company man, putting out this property that a whole bunch of people supposedly like. We'll see. Also, look at this art. Oh, Knight's transformation. That's pretty cool because, you know, when I see Optimus Prime, I'm thinking, all right, you know, Optimus Prime is just a big old box. You know, how big a deal is it to like draw him, you know, like that? But then you see this. And it's like, Daniel Warren Johnson is pretty darn cool. And if I could ever read a Transformers comic book, because let me tell you, not really into Transformers. If I could ever read a Transformers comic book, it will be because he's writing and drawing it, but mostly because he's drawing it. Because let's be real. Why are you buying a Daniel Warren Johnson book that he doesn't draw? Maybe I can bring up some comic books that's coming out tomorrow. That would be a good thing, since, you know, we sell comic books at this comic book store. Although I don't know, maybe Jill can tell me in chat if it's happened. I have not received my UPS order. So that's a problem. Customers out there. Let me bring a banner up. We'll be talking about John Romita in a moment. Continuing our conversation. First up, Nightwing, number 105. Winnie got it. This is a story as if we are Nightwing. I don't know if that means choose your own adventure or what, but whoa, that's crazy. I'm kind of interested in that. Tom Taylor, not my favorite writer, but he usually is working with a good artist in Bruno Redondo, and I do like Dick Grayson. Are you a Dick Grayson fan by any chance? Did you read Robin and New Teen Titans, or maybe even in Detective and Batman?
Oh yeah, I've read easily in the thousands of Dick Grayson stories.
Very good. Holy cow! Let me tell you, Eric, this issue is so good. This issue, I am a Joshua Williamson fan. I don't like events. And I think everybody that has a problem with his events should not take that and place it on Superman. The art by Jamal Campbell is really good. And this issue is really strong. It leaves us on a cliffhanger that's going to be resolved in like a month, because there's going to be a Superman annual. Because 5 issues in deserves an annual. But also, Superman isn't going to be coming out for 2 months because of Night Terrors. Boo. But I've got Who Shot JR vibes, and it is so good. The reason why Superman is so strong is one of the reasons why he can't help who he needs to help the most. And that's all I'm going to say. Beautiful art.
I've read the first 4 issues of this run.
Oh, okay. So at the last issue, it ended with Jimmy Olsen saying, "Don't hurt Silver Banshee. We're in love."
Yeah, I'm of two minds on that one, but
dude, Jimmy Olsen is the player of the DC universe. Who is bigger player than him?
Oh, remember in the 70s when he was Mr. Action? I mean, yeah, his abilities are kind of in proportion to how much the writer likes him.
Oh, for sure.
Or how they perceive him, because John Byrne, when he took over Superman, probably the one character I liked the least was his Jimmy Olsen, because in John Byrne's mind, he was 12 years old and still running around saying "jeepers."
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, I've read a lot of Jimmy Olsen stories where he's I actually like him when he's portrayed as like a badass.
He's pretty cool. I mean, he's dated Lois's sister, if I remember correctly. I mean, he's been a turtle. He's been all sorts of kaiju monsters. I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's but yeah, that Superman. I'm actually reading about half of Dawn of DC.
King Spawn is my only pull for this week. If I was talking to a customer and we were having fun, I'd say, you got to try harder. There's something. But I understand it's only in your pull. It doesn't mean it's going to be the only thing you pick up. Ultimate Invasion comes out tomorrow. All right. Let me get back to the new books for a second. We'll get these really quick. Saga's coming out tomorrow. Yay. Still a good book. Not my favorite book, but the only book that I have read read a lot of Spider-Man, but 65 issues of an independent book that I've read in a row, that's pretty good. Well, 64. I haven't read this yet. Next up, we have Wonder Woman 800, the last issue of Wonder Woman until the first issue, written by Tom King with Daniel Sampere on art. And if you're really looking forward to that, Tom King has an introductory story that introduces us to Trinity. So all you speculators out there, please come and buy this expensive book.
How much is this?
It's only like $5.99. Well, the variants are usually $1 more.
I was going to say, I liked what DC did with Flash 800.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
$5, 5 stories, and there were 5 legitimate writers on the book. Make of that what you will. But I like the $5 price tag.
Well, this is more of one continuing story mostly, and the artists are different, and I recommend it. It looks like it's not that bad. If you're a Wonder Woman fan, but you don't pick up the issues very often, I think you're going to like this a lot. But if you read it all the way through and you want to get a little bit taste of what's going to be happening in 2 months, number 1 starts up. All right, next up we have when he said Titans number 2. All right, I was going to get all these pictures together and everything because I was so insulted. You know, I like how we try. Somebody said something about Tom Taylor screwing up something in the story, and I didn't even catch that because I was so upset with just the costume choices of Starfire represented in the past in her Teen Titans days. And I can't remember who the other character was. And maybe it was Donna, but I don't think it was her. It was a lady. And they and they just really dressed them up, you know, more than they were. You know, they were a little bit more scantily clad. And I know, you know, you might not dig that, but yeah, it just is stupid. Just the art alone was very upsetting. Nicola Scott's okay, but she's not my favorite. This is an okay issue though. Until I got told that, you know, spoiled on the fact that I screwed up and couldn't remember that. Oh yeah, it was a Dick one. I don't know. Maybe people are a little bit. So this is the deal. Dick says something in here that he has a little bit of a tab on all his teammates, you know, like Bruce did back in the Tower of Babel. Or, you know, the Mark Waid story where it ruined comic books. That was another comic book that ruined
Project
comics.
Or Scott Snyder's. Yeah. I guess it was only a matter of time.
Well, I mean, in the 2000s, you know, the aughts, it was an edgy premise, but at the same time, it was really, really damaging to the DC universe. And so I guess both Dick and somebody else said we would never do that. But I mean, you have to have read every single comic that came before or came after that in order to be able to read that. I mean, I was pissed off at reading that shit. If Brian Hitch wasn't on the art, I'd be pissed. Next up, we have Hulk #1. The last series is over. Thank the Lord. And the new story has begun. I think it's interesting. There's only one real small Hulk appearance, but it's cool. There's a lot of characters being there's a lot of character in this book, and it looks really good too.
What's the team on this one?
It is Philip Kennedy Johnson, who does Action Comics.
Yeah. Which is good. I like.
Yeah, me too. I like his story on that. And it's Nick Klein who's going to be doing the illustrations on the inside.
Okay.
There's going to be a bunch of variant covers, including this one by George Perez. I'm so glad that they finally are letting him come back and do things for them. It's pretty nice. And wow. Look at that cool Pat Gleason comic or cover. It's pretty nice. All right, next up we have Catwoman. Just to let everybody know, Selena Kyle is back in the costume, the cat costume. She has the whip again, everybody. I haven't been reading it. I didn't know she was gone. Did you, Eric?
No.
Okay, very good.
Not a Teeny Howard fan. Sorry.
Yeah, me either. Avengers #2. This was pretty cool. I flipped through it mostly, but I thought it was a pretty good issue. It does one of those devices I'm not a big fan of. I'm also not a big fan of Kang, but I know there's a lot of effort being invested in him right now. How do you feel about Kang? What are your favorite Kang stories that you've read?
The Celestial Madonna saga that took place from, I think, Avengers 129 through 135 and Giant Size 2, 3, and 4. Basically started with the death of Swordsman, culminated with the wedding of Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Mantis to the Kotati. I thought that was brilliantly done. As good. I mean, Englehart was just firing on all cylinders in those days. Nice. And subsequently, I think all the really good Kang stories. There was the one where Thor, Moondragon, and Hawkeye ended up in the Old West and teamed up with all the Western heroes to fight Kang. I thought that was very, very well done. I think the best Kang stories have already been told.
That Kurt Busiek one was pretty good. It went like
I remember
30 issues.
I heard that one. I mean, I read those, but I have like almost like a Rain Man memory for the Avengers up to a point.
Yeah.
And I need to go back and read the Busiek issues, but I keep getting sidetracked with so much other stuff.
I hear you. I'm only going to do a couple more, everybody. This is the biggie. This is the one everybody should know about. It is Jonathan Hickman coming back and writing at Marvel, but in the Ultimate Universe, in Ultimate Invasion with Brian Hitch. And not unlike when Brian Hitch was kicking off the Ultimate Universe in Ultimates, he's going to be doing it here with this 4-issue miniseries. It is a steep #1 price for some people that aren't buying comics these days in $8.99. There's a bunch of different covers, but it's worth. There's not like a bunch of that Hickman text that everybody expects. It's just a really solid book, and it's really exciting, and I just enjoyed reading it a lot. It's exciting to be excited about something again. And I think if you just don't think about it, you're going to be very happy, and you're gonna like the art. If you like superheroes, this is one for you. Especially since they're, I guess, creating an Ultimate Universe again. So we'll see how that goes.
Can they fix the regular universe next? Real quick, Gamma Worlds. The reason why he only did 12 issues, and you may already know this, when DC poached him, he had already signed an agreement to go write in Europe, like 1 year after that point. So he agreed to come over and write Justice League for 1 year if they would let him write Batman. Well, Detective had one foot in the grave and one on the peel, so they gave him Detective, and he wrote The Strange Apparitions, which is arguably the best in continuity Batman story ever. But that's why he only did 12 issues.
It's awesome. All right, so we were talking about, let's see. Let's just go down this really quick. Busiek's Kang Dynasty is the best. Okay, that's very good. I agree. It's my favorite one that I've read. Gamma Worlds also said, no thanks, I'll be skipping out on Hickman data pages. Like I said, it's not that many. Not that many. And I really did like it a lot. I don't know. It's like 48 or something like that. Come on, everybody's kickstarting or crowdfunding $40 60 pagers. Come on now. I like Hickman. I just don't like all those data pages. A few are cool, but I pay for art and story, not text pages. Well, I mean, that's the thing. He cut his teeth making comics when he did. Do you remember what his first book was by any chance? It was News something. It was News something. It was News Radio. He did a comic adaptation of News Radio, and it was all text pages and clip art because he's not a real artist, but he was doing everything because, that's what you do when you can't draw. Bendis was a lot like that too. My customer Jim says, I'll take it. Damn it. That's what I wanted to start the show with. We were so close to get to 100 likes. Give us a thumbs up because I'm trying my hardest to convince this guy that we've got the audience for it and at least get us 100. Come on. I know you're out there, but I know I said this too late, so we'll work on it next week. Yeah, I did see it, Jill. Thank you so much. My first Hickman was FF. Whoo, baby. Yeah. He told some really good stories in FF. I don't know if you were privy to those, Breen, but I did like them.
That is my favorite thing that Hickman's written by miles.
It's what always gives me hope.
And
there were some good moments in Avengers, but
there were, but that wasn't. I suppose I liked Bendis's Avengers, but they weren't the Avengers. I mean, I am truly the get off my lawn guy when it comes to the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last time anybody did them well was Busick in the early 2000s. I think every version since then have either been not Avengers, too many Avengers. Now it's Carol Danvers Avengers. Before that, you had Blade and Ghost Rider. They're not Avengers, at least not to me.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. The thing about Bendis was when he was disassembling them, they did an interview in Wizard, and I recall he says something like, if you don't like what's going to happen, there's old stuff you can go out and buy. And that might be true, but Marvel doesn't keep that shit in print. And I don't necessarily want to go on some app because they have their whims on whether or not they're going to let something be seen anyway.
Well,
there's a lot of reasons why that's some bullshit. And so he was kind of like the first, if you don't like my comics, fuck off.
Now, I will give them, I will I'll defend him to a point. The Avengers had become, that word had become almost like a death sentence by the mid-90s, to where when they canceled West Coast Avengers, they replaced it with Force Works as a title. When the Ultimate Universe started, when they did the Ultimate Avengers, they just called them the Ultimates because they didn't want the stink of that word on it. So if Bendis doesn't do what he does, I don't know that the Avengers would still exist, because it all worked for whatever reason and allowed them to bring back the classic characters that he had disassembled. Because remember, if you're not Uncle Ben, there's a good chance you're coming back. Remember that, Kamala Khan fans.
Yeah, don't cry. That book's already been solicited.
She's in the background of the cover of the Tony Stark Emma Frost wedding.
Speaking of women, check this picture I got. Check this picture I got out of one of these books. That's the reason why I like Tomorrow, because they'll have like fan drawn stuff, fan art, or stuff you'll never see if you don't get these books. And this is a nice Gwen Stacy. Pretty nice.
I am still broken up about the Great Lakes Avengers, by the way. He's not wrong.
Wait, what's wrong with the Great Lakes Avengers?
No, I'm still heartbroken about him.
Is that true? Are we talking the one with the flat man guy?
Yeah,
the Big Bertha.
Big Bertha.
And there was Dan Slott wrote a mini series on them, if I'm not mistaken, where it was all about the guy who can't die, or he can die, but he always comes back to life. What's his Immortal Man, right? He's a lame hero, though. I mean, all of the Great Lakes Avengers are horrible. Is that where Squirrel Girl is also?
No, it's
anyway. Anybody that's lame could be. They're the Legion of Substitute Heroes of the Marvel Universe is what they are. And even that one book that was supposed to come out with Safe Space and all that other shit, the backpack pink
the new Warriors.
The New Warriors. They should have made it. The Great Lakes Avengers, and then nobody could say anything. You know what I mean?
Oh, I don't know about you, but I wanted that book to come out so bad.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there was YouTube channels that were like salivating.
Oh, yeah.
They're still salivating. In fact, if they were smart, they had all pulled their resources together and got somebody on the sly to create a copy of it in black and white. Don't even ink it. And just get that thing out there so that they could fucking rag on it. It would be great. That's a work.
Honestly,
that would have been a good one.
I think that would have sold. And what difference does it make why it sells? Yeah,
there is no reason.
The bank doesn't ask.
No, not at all. All right, so the reason why I let into that is because the romance comics were really cool, and he had a really nice. Oh, damn! Did I get rid of them? He had a really good sense of drawing a city and just real stuff. And Marvel was all about, a lot of panels in a page telling a story in, 8 pages and all that stuff. in the 60s, right? Am I mistaken in when I'm saying that? Because when Romita comes, it's just like he opens it up like he did in the romance comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so his first work back was pretty much Daredevil, right? That's where he was.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. So you were talking about this story here with the Khazar's, or no.
No, it's 16 and 17 was a 2-part Spider-Man story.
That's right. So in the beginning, it's funny because like so now going back to when he was, this is crazy. Going back to when he's drawing comics for Marvel, doing Captain America, he was trying his hardest to do it Kirby. Trying his hardest. And here he comes back to Daredevil, and Kirby's doing the layouts for him in the first 3 issues. And you can even see on the inside, it's like it's, you know, you get in those Kirby pages, you know. And then, yeah, it doesn't look like the Romita that we're going to, like, you know, talk about in a moment. Definitely doesn't look like it's romance stuff.
You can see traces of it, but...
Sure. And Kirby's pretty tight. I mean, I assume his layouts are like, I can like work with that. I mean, every time I've ever seen anything. All right. So, and then this is the last issue. And then comes the next issue you're talking about, number 16.
Yep.
And what's important here, or maybe you can expand on this. What's a big deal about Spider-Man being in Daredevil and John Romita drawing Spider-Man for the first time?
Well, it's like I said earlier in the stream, I think Stan knew that Ditko was on the clock. He needed a replacement. And I think, yeah, and I'll talk about this in a minute, what Stan's vision of Spider-Man was, Romita, given his romance background, would have been better suited than anybody else he had, whether it was Don Heck or there weren't a whole lot of artists to go around in those days.
Don Heck, there was
because he'd already pissed away Wally Wood. Yeah, he'd already pissed away. Arnold Drake was a writer.
That's right. I'm sorry.
He'd already pissed off Wally Wood. He took his ball and went to Tower Comics. And there just weren't that many. So, this was how and you can see in that cover, it looks like he's trying to look a little like Ditko, but his version of Spider-Man is far more muscular than Ditko's.
So very interesting. I do think he is totally trying to do his Ditko. It's funny, like, again, he's trying his hardest to work, to be Kirby at one time. Or at least, I don't know, maybe not be him, but, fill in what people want to see.
And I'm sure what Stan wanted to see.
Sure thing. And, also what has come before him, he's taking he's doing it for the first time. So this is, other than Jack Kirby, what in FF, this is pretty much the only other person that's ever drawn Spider-Man at this moment, as Ditko's still doing Amazing Spider-Man, technically.
Yeah.
It's, they got issues in the can. So it's not going to be for a few months that, or whatever, that Ditko is going to be off the book. Here's some good pages here. And again, I just think, I even in this one, this Daredevil panel right here, it's very Ditko looking, like, especially in the face to me. I don't know, the way John Romita draws much bigger heads to me, much wider than Ditko does. And then this is the last panels that I have from this. And it's, he is doing, because this isn't the way Spider-Man's going to look in a little bit. And I don't have the comparison to show. Oh, I do, actually. I'll just show you a book. So the way I bought books back when I was a kid, other than Marvel Tales coming, was I had, there's back issues that you could get, obviously. But when I bought Spider-Man, it was almost always like this, at first.
Uh-huh.
And you get 6 issues. It's trade paperback, just it was small, little pocket. You I had all of the Spider-Man ones and the Hulk ones, but I was not a Fantastic Four fan actually. But so Ditko was my jam, and even though Jack Kirby does a whole lot of Hulk, so does a lot of Ditko, and it's kind of weird and different. But that's why he's always number one for me. Just to let you know, you Bagley fans. But there was also during that time, this was one of the trades that would come out. And just to let everybody know, it was only $3.95. This would be at a $40 book now, $45. There'd be a few more issues, But here's I don't know. This is still pretty early on, but because this is the introduction of Mary Jane, this issue here. So we finally get to see Mary Jane, and then that's where Romita really starts to shine, because even his first early issues are, still kind of doing the Ditko thing.
Oh yeah, the first time he draws Gwen, he has the same hairstyle that Ditko had given her.
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and this looks like this is a good time to say what I was going to say about Romita. I like to think of the great what ifs in comics. Like, what if there are no comic book trials? Do we get the superhero revival? What if Joe Manili doesn't walk out in front of that train? Do we get Jack Kirby back at Marvel for what became the Marvel Universe? But if Steve Ditko doesn't leave Spider-Man, I'm not sure that we have. I'm not going to go as far as say we wouldn't have had the MCU, but Steve Ditko's vision of Spider-Man was for him to remain aloof, friendless, standoffish, just and basically like a fly in ember, stuck. Stan and John were more on the same page. Peter Parker got better looking. He introduced Mary Jane. She was a knockout. Gwen, he basically turned Gwen into a blonde MJ. And everybody, the people were just better looking across the board. Peter became more likable. The other characters became more likable, because if you read the Ditko issues, Gwen's not exactly a nice person. None of them are, except for maybe Aunt May.
They're like hipsters and stuff like that,
And I think the Spider-Man exploded in popularity thanks to John Romita.
It did. I mean, so they give a whole lot of credit to Romita as far as making Spider-Man the number one book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Fantastic Four is always given the world's greatest comic magazine, right? But Spider-Man was, it was the solo title, right? And the X-Men eventually came around, but I mean, I think if you're talking about one symbol that is Marvel, it's got to be Spider-Man all the way. It's pretty much because John Romita was able to continue it, wouldn't you think? I mean, it's scary to have to follow Steve Ditko. It's scary to have to follow Jack Kirby.
And he did both, yeah. So
he
that's
did both, yeah.
Again, I don't know how scary it was to follow Steve Ditko. No, I know exactly what you mean, but when we look at it in 2023,
sure,
at the legend that Steve Ditko became, but at the time, he might have just been this really, basically everything I used to describe Peter Parker describes Steve Ditko, and he'd been there for 3 years plus, 3 years and change, doing the superhero stuff. I don't know if it was as daunting. Now replacing Jack in 1970, totally different story, because that was after 8 or 9 years. So I imagine that would have been like a holy bleep moment. I mean, how do you replace the king?
Well, the thing, the Spider-Man though was Marvel did bi-monthly books. They had to really. They only were allowed to have so many books on the shelves during that early days of Marvel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were allowed to have 8 a month. So for a time, they did 16 bi-monthly titles. But Spider-Man was monthly before Ditko left. FF was monthly.
It was really quick that Spider-Man became a monthly book. They must have known that they had something big right at the beginning. And I'm not downplaying. This isn't an attempt to downplay John Romita. I'm just saying, seriously, you're doing your job. You're doing, it's just a job. I'm grinding it. I'm getting this stuff done. I'm sure when I said scary, we're looking at it. I just want to qualify what I said earlier.
No, I think we all understood what you were saying.
Maranya says, what's driving me crazy are people who know better or should, when they are talking about the loss of John Romita, they keep saying junior and not senior. Maybe they're just talking about the degradation of John Romita Jr.'s artwork. I'm joking. I don't agree with that at all. He's number one in my heart forever.
Junior?
He's doing great work all the way. Junior, yeah.
Okay.
No, dude, have you seen him, how he draws too? He's like all straight up, the drawing tables like this. That fucker can get shit done, and it still looks more dynamic than the most lavish stuff that's done out there. And sometimes he even cares about the pages that he does.
I think his best days are
Don't disagree.
in the rearview mirror. Now, here's the thing. By the time John Romita Sr. was in his mid-40s, he had become the art director and basically had stepped away from monthly comics. Junior is 66. I mean, I remember when he was the hot, hunky new guy doing the backup story on Amazing Spider-Man Annual 11. And that guy is 66 bleeping years old now. So he did it a lot longer than his dad. As far as into the, of his years of
in a
life.
consistent manner, without a doubt. I mean, still two books a month a lot of times. I mean, and that was not that long ago.
Yeah.
I think about artists that I really like, and for them to do 10 consecutive issues is a crazy. But I also wax, maybe to my detriment, thinking that a lot of people did a lot of stuff in consecutive issues because, in Avengers, George Perez had breaks, and then Byrne would come on, and then Perez, and then Byrne, and then Bob Hall, and whoever it was, I don't know. Maybe it was Bob Brown.
No, unfortunately, you're right the first time.
No, I mean, the thing is, Hall, we were this is why, old guys like us always go back and talk about, maybe John Romita's run, or maybe, John Byrne's run on X-Men, or John Byrne's run on Fantastic Four, or John Byrne's run on Alpha Flight. No issues in between except for that one Proteus story screws the whole thing up.
Well, what are you talking about?
I don't get that anymore. Ron Friends doesn't do 30 consecutive issues. I mean, there was a time when I looked at it and I was like, I've seen this so much, but now I don't see it at all. And man, we had a good time is all I'm saying. There's a great song about the Great Lakes Avengers by Kirby Crackle. Check your Spotify. That's my added on that.
There you left out Burn on Iron Fist.
Burn on Iron Fist. Well, I mean, that was
Burn on Team Up.
Burn on Team Up. Burn on freaking Champions. He did 7 issues for no reason. How many?
I'm your editor. 5.
All right, very good. Whatever. John Romita Sr. refined the look of Spider-Man. To this day, they use his version on promotional materials and merchandise that isn't MCU. That proves that Romita Sr. is a freaking legend. Totally agree. The only thing about Romita Sr. that I don't like is freaking that Jarhead look, as far as I'm concerned, on Peter Parker. And he looked silly on that scooter too during that time. Let me show you a picture of that really quick. I mean, it was really hard. I mean, other than his frame, and even still, he bulked him up a lot. It was kind of even hard to tell him the difference between him and Jonah's kid. You know, they just got that square head.
Yeah, well, yeah,
very like, you know, if the beaver grew up and did some
see it, but he
exercise.
loosened him up over time.
He what?
He loosened him up over time. The hair grew a little bit, and
yeah, well, you know, Gwen's a freaky chick, you know.
It depends on who you ask or who's writing. I said
she was pure as the driven snow.
Then she got before she got freaky with Norman.
Exactly, she got freaky. That was a pity fuck, and that's an okay. That's not the same thing.
All I'm gonna say about that is thank you, Nick Spencer,
for saving. Thank you, Nick Spencer. You may have fucked up Captain America, but you saved Gwen Stacy. You couldn't help Spider-Man, but you got that Substack deal. So grab that bag, as the kids say. Kazar, X-Men 10. I don't know what that means. Did we say something about it?
I don't recall, but I know.
All right, how about this? Young romance in tights. You know, there was a picture that let's see if I still have it. I do right here. Talking Soul tweeted this one or Instagrammed this one. The many loves of Peter Parker. And this is like going to, for me, this backs up the idea that there's no way Mary Jane is the lady for him. And if you look at Peter, he's often a repeat offender.
Okay, Marcy Kane turned out to be an alien, went off with Jack of Hearts. Deborah Whitman went. Gloria Grant, way too much woman for Peter.
That was
Liz Allen.
That was very progressive, though.
Liz Allen, you know, Harry Osborn, Foggy Nelson, no time for Peter. And Flash in high school, Betty Brant, and she likes to date hobgoblins. What are you gonna say? Yeah, Sissy Ironwood. What's she doing in there? They didn't even date.
Wait, who? Which one?
That's Sissy Ironwood. The other.
Oh,
blonde.
It does say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even think they had a date.
All right, very good. I like how Gwen Stacy has the cloud behind her. That ain't the only ones, I'm sure. But Deborah Whitman was a pretty consistent. Well, I always thought the sassy one during the Dan Slott era should have been his girlfriend. The cop or whatever she was. No, the reporter.
Carly?
Yeah, man. She was a real
Slott
troublemaker.
Wasn't she like Slott's sister or daughter? No, she couldn't have a daughter.
I don't know. When you base something off your relative, then I think that's weird. And you know, whatever.
You know what? How's your father? I don't think so. I'm trying to think if Vince Coletta ever inked Romita.
Did you say rape?
Erased.
Erased. No, I don't think he erases as much as just covers it up. Oh man, I always would joke that he inks with a marks a lot. You know, the big fat marker. That's how he inks.
Well, apparently he had connections, so nobody could really call him on it.
He had to also get a lot of things done as you know, everybody bitches about crunch time, right? I'm sure that guy was under the most crunch time of them all. The inker's like the last person to get that. Well, the colorist. You got to get this fast for the colorist.
Well, he said, do you want it done right or do you want it done on time? I believe that was his...
Eric Larson got lambasted when he was like, if you take longer than 3 hours to do a page, then you're wasting your time, you know? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, that's true, but some people really only have about 3 to 6 comic books ever in them. And maybe, you know, that's what you got to do. You know, if you're only going to have that, you know, if you're Art Adams' career, other than like the covers of today are not like his interiors. You know, how many odd comics has he really done in his life?
Who are we talking about now?
Art Adams.
Well, I know he did the Gumby Summer Spectacular.
Yeah.
I think that's where his career peaked, honestly.
Oh, for sure. Well, there was that Godzilla. That was very good also.
Missed that one.
Anything where you had to really go crazy on it.
I think all kidding aside, the first Action Comics annual with
Boom.
the
That's very
Swamp
good.
Vampire Girl. That
Yeah.
was a great,
Super
that was a great
hot
comic.
too. It did everything. It like did a really good Batman, a really good Superman, a real hot Daisy Duke Southern swamp chick.
Yeah.
Vampire. Yeah, that's very good. But I mean, there's only so many of those, right? And then that's his career pretty much.
Yeah, I think he's more of a cover artist. And honestly, if Ash ever watches this, he'll kill me. I don't think he's. He was good on interiors in the 80s. I'm not sure how good he was past that.
Yeah.
I still like seeing him on the occasional cover, but and I would take his interiors over a lot of people's, but for the reputation he has and for how revered he is by a lot of people, I don't know that he lives up to it.
I'm going to ask you one more question about John Romita, and then I'm going to get you out of here. I'm going to do this in a Graphic Man style, but I want you to talk over me like an Englentine style. Okay, so like, so this is an auction, but you're not getting my fucking bucks, okay? And you get to see them as if you were watching Graphic Man or a bunch of old dudes showing their stuff off. These are my John Romita covers of Spider-Man's, and although we talked a lot about his interiors and his style and how he sexed up the romance and the Spider-Man and stuff, I'm going to show you the covers of these Spider-Man comics. But what I want you, Breen, to do is to tell me how. What I want you to expand on is how you would have a month of Gil Kane covers. You would have a month of John Romita covers, and Marvel also. Nobody just got to do the covers because there were no variant covers, right?
Right.
So, can you explain to me how as I show you my John Romita covers, because I don't have a whole lot. Or I didn't pick a whole lot to show. Can you tell me a little bit how that's different, like the covers and how they sell comics of today as opposed to yesterday?
Yeah, the cover used to tell the reader what was going to happen in the comic.
Do you know what happens in this comic, by the way?
Yes, I do.
What happens? Can you let people know?
Okay, but Norman unmasks Spider-Man. Spider-Man learns Norman's identity. They basically fight, presumably to the death. But what happens is Norman gets knocked out, and the Goblin gets knocked out and loses. He loses the knowledge that he is the Green Goblin, and so Spider-Man ditches the costume, carries him out of the building, and says he's a hero. He helped me take out the Goblin.
Nice. All right. This is actually Marie Severin, and John Romita. So he would finish or ink for some people sometimes.
I'm guessing, yeah. I'm sure he did on occasion.
This is a pretty cool cover, though.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Spider-Man goes on a talk show. I don't know if it was supposed to be Carson, because I think they did that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember how Electro ended up there. And I think we just butchered this on the Geeky Puppet Show too.
That's all right. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's another thing that you do where you read comic books, right?
Well, I don't know if "read's" the right word.
Well, you guys land-based comics.
We just put our own spin on it.
I was reading a comic that was so bad the other day. I'm gonna have to try and remember what it was. And you guys have to do that because it was the fact that you guys do it. I mean, what are you going to do? Lose viewers?
Just give people who've never seen it, which is probably everybody other than Maranya here. When we do the Fantastic Four, she voices the Thing, I voice Sue.
Very good. I like that. This, by the way, is my birthday book, or in the very least, it says March 1970. So that's another reason why that's important to me. This one is. I haven't put it together, but I was going to. But then I had a. This is my favorite issue of Spider-Man. Definitely top 5. Issue 151. I probably read it in Marvel Tales first, but I was getting my bug back of buying back issues when I got this one, and this really did it for me. And it's really super sharp in the black. Look
Yeah.
at that.
Now that is
dude.
Ross Andrew had
On the
taken over on
inside,
the art
yeah.
by that time, and I believe that's a shocker story, is it not?
It sure is. But that's John Romita on the cover, and that's just this
That
is
well, it's an iconic cover. I mean, it's like I said, hey, they don't all get to be made into puzzles.
That's right, exactly. This one is the first Gibbon. And for any Reggie Simmons YouTube or Instagram or Twitter freaks out there, you'll know about the Gibbon crew. That's pretty cool. I mean,
that's some good stuff.
How on his own book did Gil Kane, was he just not regular enough all the time to get the cover, or is just John Romita that much better than Gil Kane?
Well,
I mean, Gil Kane was doing stuff for DC in and out for like 15 years prior to this, probably.
Gil Kane was doing an awful lot of covers in those days.
He was.
And a lot of interiors on stories that neither one of us had probably ever read. But honestly, if you're going to have a moment that momentous, even though I think Gil Kane did the interiors.
He did.
Those, yeah.
He did. It's like
I have no problem with letting, because Romita is, Gil Kane's my all-time favorite artist, always has been. I don't think anybody's going to knock him off at this point. But I have no problem with Romita getting those 2 covers.
So he is so instrumental in the change, or at least Stan Lee was able to utilize him properly, because it's not like John Romita was going out there and writing any books or had any thing like that, right? That I remember, at least. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
In those days, I don't think there was a lot of crossover.
It's like, Jack Kirby eventually, in the late 60s, early 70s, goes over to DC, early 70s goes over to DC. Yeah. And then he's writing his own books, and I mean, it's like an artist that is trying to write their own books.
And do you remember what is credited for that not succeeding? They said, great concept. If only he'd had a guy writing the dialogue, like he had at Marvel.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, Stan Lee, was notorious for never paying attention to what was going on. Well, I shouldn't say never, but, he had his own way of doing things. In fact, this is the beautiful thing about the internet, though, because I probably wouldn't have found this. Oh, did I not put this up? Let me do that really quick. Get the Romita. Oh, yeah, I had some other covers and stuff, but it doesn't matter. There was this really cool interview with Romita, and they were talking about Stan Lee wanting to only pay him like $20. I'm making $45 a page. What are you paying? He'd say $25 a page. Come on over and work for me. It's $20 a page. I just thought this little thing, this repartee between him and the interviewer about Stan Lee being a dick is funny.
Now, I do have to, again, not to be a Stan Lee, apologist, but if you're going to direct that ire, it probably should go to Martin Goodman.
Yeah, there's other people too. He wasn't
the buck stopped with him, and apparently he was like Uncle Scrooge with him.
Yeah, well, there's no real money in this business.
Speaking of Martin Goodman, real quick story. Did you know that National offered him $15,000. This was like in 1958 when he hadn't used him for years. Offered him $15,000 for the rights to Captain America, Submariner, and Human Torch, and his answer was, "I'm already rich. I don't need the money."
Oh, yeah.
What if he'd taken the money? How different would comics look today?
I mean, there's your live what ifs again.
Yeah.
So where as far as Marvel is concerned, as far as Spider-Man specifically, but I guess Marvel even more so, where does Romita rank on, like, are there more important people? Do people come after him that kind of supplant him from his seat where he maybe at one time was? What do you think about John Romita? I mean, he is definitely a legend. I'm not.
Yeah. Are we talking?
I'm not Luke Rossing this situation or whoever else is current that dies. That I'm like, oh, he was a legend, and it's like, that was a nice thing to say about them. But let's be real.
Are we talking artists only, or just creators in general for Spider-Man?
Well, I'm going to just say creators right now. It is unfortunate when an artist is only an artist, but let's be real. Fuck artists, right?
Obviously, the most important person in the history of Spider-Man is Stan Lee. Because he wrote the first 100 issues.
Fuck. Listen to you. He didn't write those first 30 some odd issues.
Oh, don't give me that. Ditko did everything. Stan just rubber stamped it. God.
All he did was explain what was going on in the pictures.
Please.
Please.
But we're not here to bury Stan. We did that 5 years ago.
No way, man. That Neil Kirby's doing it also.
Oh, I know. I said at this point, I don't know that we'll ever really know any more than we already know, and I think everybody's already chosen their sides. I choose to look at it as thank you to both of them because they anyway. But then John Romita, more so than Ditko. Because Ditko may have co-created, no question, he co-created. I'm not one of those guys that Stan did it, but it's like Romita defined the character, and that partnership took it to heights that it would not have happened otherwise. I don't think anybody has come close since. I mean, there have been great writers on Spider-Man. And if anybody says Todd McFarlane, I will reach through the computer.
Wow, you're not a big Todd McFarlane fan.
No, but I'm saying, but I not if you're gonna try to compare him to John Romita on Spider-Man. It was neat. I mean, it was unique. But no, that John Romita is why Spider-Man was still viable for McFarlane to get to do him.
That's interesting because, sometimes, a lot of times, my favorite creators are the writer artist. The Frank Miller, the John Byrne. Older people will like Will Eisner, and then there's guys like Gil Kane who just drew comic books. There's guys like Ross Andrew who just drew comic books. George Perez pretty much just drew comic books. There's those guys. Barry Kitson. If Barry Kitson's writing a fucking comic book, I'll be like, who's helping him? Who's editing that? But it's like that. And it's, as far as like only artists, John Romita is super high up on the totem pole for sure.
Yeah, I found out later that Gil Kane did do some writing.
Oh shit! Are you talking about that Black Mark stuff?
No, I know he did. His name is Savage, and I think he did some other writing, but
all right, incorrected.
Like Neil Adams did some writing in his, but they, I mean,
I didn't say Neil Adams at least.
No, I know.
He fancies himself
nobody knows. Nobody knows that Gil Kane wrote anything. I didn't know that till recently.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. I just assumed it was that other stuff, but whatever. Let me play this. Nobody leave if you're still here because you want to watch more stuff, but there's just this thing I have to do. Breen, you can leave whenever you want.
Oh, you want me to take off so you can?
No, not at all. I don't want you to take off at all.
Okay.
I love talking to you. I went over 2 hours yet again. This is like just a new thing. Like it's like I've overeaten and it always expands a little bit farther each time. But I almost went 2.5 hours and we're not doing that this time. This is when I let everybody know that we have a Patreon page. We also have Substack and Twitter. Substack's free and it's our most populous thing that we do out there. Also Patreon, because you love me so much, or you're a fan of the store, and you want to make sure we keep going on because making money selling comic books is a mug's game. Thank you, Eric Breen, for showing up and talking John Romita. Is there any John Romita that you're really a super big fan of? That maybe like everybody likes the Spider-Man. I think he did a really thick Shocker. And I'm not as big a fan of his version as maybe Ross Andrew. We're talking the quilted style, the real big thick quilt. John Romita Jr. maybe a little bit smaller, also, a little bit, bigger cuffs. But is there a John Romita something that you're like, you gotta know about this?
Well, he also did Captain America for about 18 months. I think he started in the 130s and went into maybe not quite 18 months, but like through the 140s.
Isn't there a Spider-Man issue or two, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, 137 and 138, where the Falcon mistakes Harry Osborn for Spider-Man. Red Wing tracks him to their apartment, and he grabs him and pulls him out, and he's ready to lay a beat down on him, and Spider-Man happens to catch it.
What? And then it's like, oh man, don't be hassling me. I'm just another superhero.
And then Spider-Man, handles the Falcon pretty easily, as at the time he should have been able to. And then Cap shows up, and then they team up to fight, I believe, Stoneface.
You have to have a reason for the heroes to fight each other so that they can then realize that they're supposed to be doing the same thing at the same time.
That's right.
Like, oh wait, you're fighting this Stoneface guy? I am too. Let's get him. I guarantee my first comic book is a misunderstanding into an adventure into the solving by the end. Guarantee.
Which is crazy since that rarely happens.
I know. Everybody's like, oh, maybe we should just talk it out first. And, I've even seen, if you read the Spider-Man Dark Web story, but you read the X-Men one, you know how it ended with the Goblin Queen and the X-Men?
I did not read that, no.
A hug.
Well, that's how.
Ain't nobody out there telling people about, oh man, I can't stand comics. And then they show the same bad picture of Captain Marvel. This is what's bad with comics. No, they ended a storyline with a hug.
Remember that cover for 137 with Spider-Man looming over the city. That's something if you ever put you in charge of comics.
Yeah,
that's what you need to bring back. The cover where the one character is just like looming over everybody.
They do the negative space thing. The John Taylor Christensen guy, or I don't know what his name is, Christopher. He'll do either action figure covers or he'll do alternate negative space covers where he uses the same color. So in the Ultimate Invasion that's coming out tomorrow, there's one where it's all a red background and just the black of Miles Morales Spider-Man. It looks really sweet. He did an Avengers one like that, but it was the Vision. Just looked really cool. Just like a couple colors, and then that's it. But I think that's the closest that you can get to that right now. But I will, man, when I'm king of comics, let me tell you, There's going to be black and white comics. There's going to be bi-monthly comics. There's going to be team-up comics. And there's some other, the lower price. How you like that? And you know what? We're going to keep artists on for more than 6 issues in a row. And we're not going to take an image break in between those issues. So we're going to get shit in the can. We're going to get it planned out. And we ain't going to do crossovers of issues anymore. Is Spider-Man guest stars? That's one thing. No buying another issue. That's just bullshit. No more.
When you become the king of comics, are you going to walk around the studio going with a cigar going, I'm the king of comics? Or you
I'm going to have a crown and a scepter, and I might, on cold days, have a big old cape also.
Or are you going to be like Jack Kirby and let people call you the king of comics?
Well, I think, that's,
They're a little of both.
A little bit, sometimes
Kirby,
in private company. You know what? On the internet, I'm the king, and I'll let everybody know. Behind the scenes, I want people to call me the king. Or Godfather, something like that. No, that's a little too Italian for me. What's an Anglo-Irish person? German something. A czar. No, that'd be Russian. A comic czar. At least it's it's got the CC thing going on there. Yeah. Eric, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Always
I know it's
fun.
late for you, but at least I know you're jazzed because you're hyped up, not just on caffeine, but on the Cincinnati Reds and the Boston Red Sox winning today, right? They're both some of the hottest teams, right?
Yeah, but the difference between being in a Central Division and being in an Eastern Division. The Reds are in first place, 4 over. Red Sox are in last.
Dude, it's crazy because they're like, who could the Dodgers take advantage of? And they're like the Boston Red Sox, and the Boston Red Sox have like 2 wins less than the Dodgers.
I think if LA had to do over again, they might have kept one of the Turners, and I'm not talking about Trey. I would have probably held on to Justin for another year because there's just something about him.
Yeah, but he wanted 2 in a player option or something like that. So
but
they're trying to get Ohtani next year. It's all about Ohtani.
Yeah, but whatever they would have had to pay Turner, I don't think it's good. Yeah, that's not going to be a blip on that radar.
How much? Okay, I'm sorry, everybody, but this is something that actually gets talked about in the comic store, and I got Eric here, and I'm going to take advantage of him. How much is Ohtani going to get next year? I think, I'm going to let you know right now, at least $600 million.
I was going to say, I think it's going to start north of 500, north of $500 million. Obviously, that's 500. What I think is going to be interesting, because I think if they were going to get to the point to where baseball is going to get involved behind the scenes, and I don't know if they, with the Dodgers, they won't have to, but that if worse comes to worse, they probably would have kicked in some money to get him somewhere so baseball fans can see him in October, because it's bad enough that Mike Trout's played 1 postseason series. That's 1 more than Ohtani's played over here. It'd be like LeBron James never getting in the playoffs, whether you like him or not as a person. But basketball needs him in the playoffs, at least for part of it.
At least a couple rounds.
And, basically Mike Trout is now on the second half of his career. He's starting to get nicked and miss time here and there. So, but now if Anaheim wins and gets in, maybe wins a playoff series, maybe, just maybe, it's Anaheim that gets the kickbacks to keep him there. I don't think that happens. I do think he's a Dodger, because I know Steve Cohen said, I'm not going to be outbid earlier.
Really?
Well, apparently he's got more money even that Egyptian conglomerate that owns the Dodgers, or whoever the hell they are. But he's got his own problems right now. And honestly, I don't think Ohtani can fix them. I mean,
If anybody wants their team to get Ohtani, it is inherent that the Angels don't make the playoffs.
Well, I would say there's really only 2 or 3 teams that could, realistically compete for him. The
Yankees,
Mets,
Dodgers, Mets, maybe Texas.
Maybe. But here's the thing. If you're anybody else, you think about what could happen, how much that could hamstring everything else you do.
Yeah.
Like I said, for any other team in baseball, even the other large market teams, I don't know that's worth it.
They're even talking about him getting some ownership in the team, whoever he goes to.
And
like, I can't afford 600. How about 550 and some ownership rights?
Because whoever pays that kind of money, you are basically buying the. How do I put this? It's more to do with what he adds to your franchise off the field, because he's close to peaking himself.
What if you can have Ichiro again? You know what I mean? Not Seattle necessarily, but like, what you've got in this guy for X amount of years, you assume.
Yeah, at some point, I don't know how long this deal is probably going to be 10 years. No way in hell he pitches all 10 of those years.
He'll get it, but he still can hit 35 bombs. So I can get a Cy Young award-winning style, a Cy Young, or whatever they used to call, people beforehand, before they win their awards. You're gonna get one of those guys for 5 years of a 10-year contract, and then you're gonna get a pretty darn good hitter too.
Maybe you. I was train of thought here. Oh, good Lord, just popped out of my head. It'll come back.
That's good. Well, you know what, Maranya, Ms. Maranya, if you want to hear some other great commentary, you should check out anything from I Love Comics on YouTube also. Usually when it's live, I mean. Back in the day, the cover artist would submit roughs for the cover design. Art director Stan would pick the best design and have that artist do the cover. Not only that, I heard John Buscema. This is what someone told me. I can't remember. That Thor Silver Surfer cover, number 4, I think it is, where the Silver Surfer's coming down against Thor. Oh man, that'd been awesome if you got it right then.
Oh, I don't have the book, but I've got the poster behind me.
Dude, everybody knows that it's awesome. So John Buscema is like, he hates doing superhero comics, but he's going to put his effort into this one. Just working super hard, making it as awesome as ever. And Stanley looks at it and says, "This is shit. Do it over again." And I don't know if that's true, but I love to believe that.
I have heard that story.
Oh my God.
I don't know what the first version looked like, but whatever the finished product, that is my all-time favorite comic book cover. In fact, I'm going to own that one more time in this life. Yeah. I have those magnets on my refrigerator in those poses. Bootleg magnets, but
awesome. I mean, yeah, great stuff. Best cover. That's a top cover. I mean, what I usually do is I separate something in superhero, something maybe, maybe I would have done romance, or Archie, something in that, separate them that way, because that's not always super fair. Maybe I would do decades or something like that, but definitely a very, very, very top cover of all time for sure. And Stanley, he probably just turned in the same one. Anyhow, thank you for joining us, everybody. Hit the like button on the way out, and tell a friend, because we do this kind of. Next week we're gonna have Joe Corallo, and we're gonna talk about Days of Future Past. How exciting is that?
Dum dum dum.